Introduction to Daming in the Box. Li Daoxuan received a strange landscape box. There is an ancient village in the box, and a group of plastic figures carrying swords are chopping back and forth in the village. He bent his fingers and bounced towards the most prominent little person in the late Ming Dynasty. Shaanxi experienced a severe drought throughout the country. A group of mountain bandits are burning, killing, and looting in the village. The poor girl looked like she was about to die by the sword of the mountain bandits. Suddenly, a giant hand stretched out from the clouds, and with a flick of its finger, the bandit flew out several tens of feet away. Chapter 1. Magical Scenery Box. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. On July 10, 2023, in summer, Shaanxi City. High temperature, with outdoor temperatures reaching over 40 degrees Celsius. Li Dao dropped his computer at the entrance, shook his head, vigorously rubbed his temples, and then collapsed backwards in a dejected manner, forming a soft ball on the chair. The work has finally been completed. The sky is already completely dark. Today is his birthday, and I wanted to take a day off to celebrate my birthday, but I was ruthlessly shattered by the first party's statement, I must finish it within today, and spent the day working hard. Is this kind of life really happy? After limping for a while, he finally got up from his chair and walked to the door. There is a huge delivery cardboard box placed here. In the afternoon, a courier delivered it to the door, and the packaging only says, Happy Birthday, nothing else. He doesn't know which friend sent it to, but after thinking about it, he doesn't have many friends. Apart from his close friend Shaanxi, there won't be anyone else sending him a birthday gift, right? Busy with work during the day and unable to open packages, until now, I can finally see what the only birthday gift is. The express box is the size of a refrigerator, and after struggling to unpack it, there is a huge landscape box inside. It is about 3 meters long, and also has a height and width of over 1 meter. After lying flat on the ground, through the glass of the landscape box, one can see the scenery of an ancient village inside. The village looks very dilapidated, with dilapidated houses and thatched roofs. The surroundings of the village are barren, with yellow sand everywhere. Li Daoxuan couldn't help but make a sarcastic comment. Most scenic boxes like to have some pavilions, towers, waterfalls, and rockeries, which are very beautiful and beautiful. How could this scenic box create a ruined village with yellow sand all over the sky? Are you saying that my aesthetic sense is only suitable for this? At this moment, the wooden door of a dilapidated house in the village suddenly creaked open. A small plastic figure walked out of the dilapidated house, about less than a centimeter tall, and surprisingly had a flowing head of long hair. She was a young girl. Li Daoxuan was startled. Can the plastic man move? Is it an electric toy? Is it so realistic? This scenery box is a bit interesting. Shaanxi is quite a buddy, so buying this thing will definitely cost a lot of money. Upon closer inspection, the plastic figurine girl has beautiful features and looks quite good. Looking. The only regret is that she is very thin and has a slightly malnourished appearance. She didn't notice that there was a giant staring at her outside the landscaping box. With a bamboo basket in her hand, she walked to the outside of the village, on a piece of loess-covered sandy land. After digging and planing, she found something and carefully placed it in the basket. She is too small, she is less than a centimeter tall, the bamboo basket in her hand is smaller, and the things dug out from the ground are so small that Li Daoxuan cannot see clearly. Li Daoxuan quickly rummaged through the boxes and cabinets, found a magnifying glass, and then looked at the girl with the magnifying glass. Only then did he see clearly that what she had dug out was a piece of grass root. The girl was desperately searching in a sandy area, sometimes digging out a piece of grass root, sometimes finding a withered tree. She scraped off a piece of bark from the tree body, and when she was lucky, she could find a few green leaves of wild vegetables. It was like having a treasure, happily packed in a basket. The girl ran back to the village and carried a basket of bark and grass roots back to the small house, where cooking smoke rose. Li Daoxian looked at the window of the room with a magnifying glass and could actually see a young girl and a middle-aged woman holding a broken bowl, making a gesture of eating through the window. "Did you dig tree bark, grass roots, and wild vegetables to eat?" Li Daoxian immediately understood. This landscape box seems to be used to reflect a disaster year in a certain dynasty in history, where poor people lived a difficult life. It serves as a warning to me that today's happy life is hard one. Li Daoxian couldn't help but take out his phone and called Kai Shaanxi, saying, "Old Kai, your birthday gift is really unique. You even played a positive energy warning for me. I really like it, brother. Thank you very much." The phone rang with Kai Shaanxi's bewildered voice. "What birthday gift? Is today your birthday?" Li Daoxian. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly rang out from the scenery box. Li Daoxian was shocked and put down his phone. He turned his head and saw a large group of plastic figures rushing towards the outside of the village. They were wearing tattered cloth clothes, holding embroidered swords and spears in their hands. Some even held pot lids as shields, while others wore tattered wooden armor. It's obvious that this group of people are mountain bandits. They rushed into the village, shouting something loudly. But their voices were very quiet, mixed together, and in Li Daoxuan's ears, they sounded like the mournful sounds of mosquitoes and ants. He quickly closed the doors and windows, eliminating all the modern noise, and only then could he vaguely hear what the bandits were shouting. "Listen carefully to the people in the village, send all the food in your house to me. Otherwise, I will kill you all with one knife and one blow." All the doors in the village were tightly closed, and no one came out. Li Daoxian saw through the window that the young girl who had just dug tree bark and grass roots was huddled with a middle-aged woman in the room, trembling. Is this scenery box made too realistic? Li Daoxian couldn't help but sigh, even the details are done so well. Who gave me such a powerful toy? At this moment, the bandits began to take action. They kicked open the door and dragged out the villagers who were hiding in the house. The villagers began to cry, and someone shouted, "We don't have anything to eat at home either. If you kill me, I won't be able to produce any food." Puff. The thief put a knife into his hand and chopped it onto the neck of the villager. The villager suddenly lay flat and couldn't move, and a puddle of red medicine flowed out from his neck. Li Daoxian shook his head, feeling quite unbearable. Fortunately, this was a plastic villain. If such a scene had really happened in history, it would have been so tragic. A mountain bandit walked up to the door of the grass-eating mother and daughter, and kicked it open. The two mother and daughter began to cry, and Li Daoxian heard the girl's voice for the first time. "King, let us go, we really don't have anything to eat. Look. Our family eats grass roots, and this bowl is all grass roots." The girl's voice is very soft and beautiful, but she is a bit weak, probably due to not having enough to eat for a long time, and her lack of breath is severe. The bandit villain cursed, "Wipe, a group of dead poor people. I don't care whether you eat grass roots or tree bark. If you can't hand over the grain, I'll just chop you and eat your meat." The girl was so frightened that she burst into tears. The middle-aged woman rushed over, hugged the girl, and cried, "Please spare your life, king." The bandit man chopped the middle-aged woman's neck with a knife, and the red potion sprayed out from afar. The middle-aged woman fell to the ground and remained motionless. The girl pounced on the body of the middle-aged woman and burst into tears. The bandit villain remained unmoved and coldly swung his knife again, slashing at the girl's neck. Seeing this, Li Daoxian couldn't help but lift the top cover of the scenic box, reach into the box, bend his index finger, and flick, touch. The mountain bandit was pointed at by him and bounced out 1 meter away, flying from the middle of the village to the yellow sand outside the village. He landed heavily, his neck tilted, and he didn't move. Li Daoxian said, "Oh my, I seem to have turned off its electric motor and broken it." Chapter 2. God's Eye Opened. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In 1627 AD, the 7th year of Tianqi, during the Ming Dynasty, in Gaojia village, Qingqing County, Shaanxi province. Summer, high temperature, outdoor temperature approaching 40 degrees. Shaanxi has been without rain for years, with withered and charred vegetation and endless yellow sand. It's been a long time since Gaoye had enough to eat. She was a hard-working child who lost her father from a young age and relied on her mother for survival. Her poor life made Gaoye very sensible from a young age, helping her mother with various agricultural work. With the mother and daughter working together, she was able to barely make ends meet. However, in the past 2 years, the lives of the mother and daughter have become increasingly difficult. As the drought intensifies day by day, the small river near the village has been cut off, and the water in the well is only enough for people to drink, but not enough for watering the fields. There is not even a single grain of food growing in the fields. Gaoye had to go out of the village every day to dig wild vegetables and come back to eat. Later on, even the wild vegetables withered away, and the two mother and daughter could only peel the bark and dig the roots of the trees. They had reached a point where they could only struggle to survive, and could not see where their way of life was. However, if God closes a door for you, He will easily weld your window to death. Life is so difficult, there are even mountain bandits coming to rob. Gaoye collapsed on the body of her mother who had just been chopped to death, crying loudly. The bandit had a cruel smile on her face. The middle-aged woman who had just been chopped down could provide food for her brothers for 2 or 3 days. If she were to chop up this little girl, it would be enough food for another 2 or 3 days. He swung his rusty knife and slashed at the back of the girl's neck. Just at this moment the wind and clouds in the sky are changing. In the midst of the clouds, a giant hand suddenly reached out and quickly reached down, brushing the ground and reaching out to the side of the mountain bandit and Gaoye. Gaoye felt something blocking the sunlight and raised her head in shock. Then, she witnessed with her own eyes a lifelong unattainable scene. The giant hand protruding from the clouds raised its index finger above her, and with a snap, the mountain bandit swung its knife and was thrown out. He flew very fast and also very far, taking off from beside Gaoye, crossing the sky, flying over the entire village, flying like a red dragonfly in the blue sky, all the way to the yellow sand outside the village, only to fall to the ground with a thud. When he landed, his bones were completely shattered, and his neck was tilted to one side. He was already dead and could no longer die. The sound of wind and thunder could still be faintly heard in the sky, and a majestic and angry voice cursed, "Damn mountain bandit." Then, the hand brushed back into the clouds and disappeared. Gaoye forgot even to cry and stared blankly at the sky. "What happened just now?" shouted another bandit not far away. "Why did he suddenly fly out so far?" Another bandit shouted, "I don't know either, I just saw him suddenly fly out." "Damn it, what hit him? Flying so far. Did this little girl do it?" The rest of the mountain bandits surrounded Gaoye. Gaoye sat on the ground, holding her mother's body with a mournful expression. Her gaze was bewildered as she looked at the dozens of bandits surrounding her, without any intention of escaping or resisting. She was just puzzled. Just now, with such a big hand appearing, it bounced off the bandits. "Can't they see it? Why do you suspect that I did it? How could I possibly do this?" The leader of the bandit asked fiercely, "Little girl, what did you do just now?" Gaoye shook her head in confusion. "Don't say it." The bandit leader angrily said, "I have a way for you to say it." He took a big step forward and waved the rusty knife in his hand. Gaoye mournfully awaits death. However, at that moment, a giant hand came out from the cloud after brushing the ground. It was just the same as before. With a flick of the finger, the leader of the mountain bandits screamed, flew back more than 10 feet, landed heavily, and his bones were broken. He could not die any more. The bandits were surprised and said, "What happened? Why did the boss suddenly fly backwards and die? This little girl did it again. Magic, it must be magic. What kind of magic did you actually use? A group of people were furious and roared wildly at Gao Ye, with anger, panic, and fear in their roar. Gao Ye understood this time. They couldn't even see that giant hand, only I could see it. She looked up at the clouds in the sky and saw a man's face floating in mid-air, as if a deity was looking down at the world. She put down her mother's body in her hand and knelt down in the sky, saying, "Heavenly God, save us." Li Daoxuan's eyebrows furrowed deeply. He took action twice in a row, helping the plastic figurine girl and breaking 2 bandit figurines. He was secretly cursing himself for being immature, and a living person was actually fighting with a plastic toy. Suddenly, he saw the plastic figurine girl take a glance into the sky, and in that moment, he even felt his gaze align with that of the plastic figurine girl. The plastic girl's eyes are very complex and full of emotions. She knelt down with satisfaction and kowtowed to Li Daoxian, pleading, "Heavenly God, please save us." Li Daoxian only felt the softest thing in his heart and was hit by this little person. Life is already so difficult, why do you still cruelly kill them? Li Daoxian vented his displeasure towards the remaining bandits and said, "You are not worthy of being human beings. You are not even worthy of being plastic people, let me die." He slapped the little bandits in the scenery box and took a picture. The bandits looked bewildered, completely unaware of what had happened. They witnessed the leader fly out with their own eyes just now, flying far away, and when he landed, he was already dead and could no longer die. Then they saw the girl kneeling on the ground, as if calling for help from the heavens. In the next moment, there was a sudden sound of wind and thunder in the sky, as if something had fallen from the sky. It fell quickly and brought up a huge and unparalleled strong wind, causing the yellow sand on the ground to spin and turn into a raging sand wind. However, when they looked up at the sky, they could see nothing. Pop! A mountain bandit was suddenly flattened. Being pressed down from the head by a heavy object, the whole person was flattened like a pancake. Flat and flat, a ball of rotten meat, blood streaming all over the ground. The bandits next to them were scared out of their wits and screamed in a strange voice, "What's wrong? How did he die? What happened?" Pop! Another bandit turned into a meat patty, tightly sticking to the ground. Pop! Another bandit, pop! Pop! The invisible weight kept crushing the mountain bandits one by one into meat patties. The remaining bandits panicked and fled in all directions, but it was of no use. One after another, all the bandits turned into meat patties, and blood stained the sand in the village. Gao Ye picked up his mother's body again and cried, "Mother, the heavens have opened their eyes. It has avenged you." Chapter 3. Is a Villain Alive? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The scenery box was temporarily quiet, and all the dilapidated houses in the village opened their doors. The ragged villagers walked out of the houses, circling around the mountain bandits who had been flattened by Li Daoxian, whispering something and occasionally looking up at the sky. Li Daoxian sat outside the box, looking at his hand. Surprisingly, the palm was red, stained with the red potion on the plastic figurines. No, it's not potion. He smelled a strong smell of blood in his nose. Although a little person had very little blood, after patting dozens of little people in a row, his palms turned red and the smell of blood became strong, pungent and unpleasant. Those villagers and little people are now whispering around the body of the mountain bandit, occasionally looking up at the sky. Some people are gathered around the young girl and little person, asking what to do. Their voices were like ant chants, and if they didn't shout loudly, Li Daoxian couldn't hear them clearly. A strange idea came to his mind. Aren't these little people performing according to the predetermined plot? The young girl's gaze met mine. She was praying to me just now, and after I killed the bandit, the actions of the villagers also changed with the development of the situation. Li Daoxuan took a serious look at the blood on his hand and then lowered his head to look at the little man in the scenery box. These little people have intelligence. This discovery surprised Li Daoxuan. He quickly went to the bathroom to wash off the blood on his hands, then returned to the box and stared inside. He saw that the villagers were already busy. They had confiscated the weapons of the bandits, and each household had their own weapons. They also took off the clothes of the bandits and dug a pit in the yellow soil outside the village, burying all the stripped bodies in the soil. Then they wrapped the bodies of several villagers who had been killed by the mountain bandits in straw mats, carried them out of the village, dug several pits and buried them, and even cut down a few pieces of wood to make tombstones. It seems that no one in the village can read, and there is not even a word written on the tombstone. Only a few crooked marks were carved on the tombstone with a knife to identify which family it belongs to. The young girl knelt in front of one of the tombs, shedding tears and banging her head a few times. Li Daoxuan had been quietly watching the little people busy for a long time, from darkness to dawn, and then from dawn to darkness. The time in the boxes had also reached the next night. The little people all went back to their houses to rest, and the girl and little person also went home, holding their mother's belongings, shedding tears, and falling asleep. The box is frozen in a non-still frame, and there is nothing beautiful left. Li Daoxuan yawned and realized that he had not slept for 2 days and a night. Rubbing his tired eyes, his painful temples, and dragging his tired body back to the computer, his mind was filled with question marks. He habitually turned on the computer and logged onto the historical military forum he often frequented, anonymously posting, "How should we deal with the little person in the scenery box suddenly coming to life?" Reply 1. I should go see a doctor. Reply 2. Pinch yourself hard and you'll wake up. Reply 3. Are there any female villains? Peeping at her changing clothes. Li Daoxuan. No one can understand his feelings at this moment. Open the QQ account for work, and the boss's profile picture is flashing wildly. Click on it, and during the whole day of staring at the scenery box, the boss has sent him several messages. You haven't woken up yet. Yesterday, the design you did was not satisfactory to the client, and there are a few areas that need to be modified. Contact me immediately when you wake up. XX person initiated a video call with you. Cancelled. When is it that you haven't woken up yet? Party A is urging you very urgently. Fuck. It's noon. Do you pretend to be dead? XX person initiated a video call with you. Cancelled. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, do you want to do this? XX person initiated a video call with you. Cancelled. It's already 6 o'clock, haven't you replied to me yet? Damn it, I'll settle your salary for the past 2 weeks, so please leave me alone. XX person transferred 2,350 yuan to you. Li Daoxuan. I lost my job. But it's not surprising or sad, I don't want to do this terrible job for a long time. Losing a job actually makes me feel relaxed. Tiredness has hit, how long has it been since I had a good sleep? Take this opportunity and rest well. He was too lazy to even wash up, walked to the bedside, fell into it, and instantly became absent-minded. July 12, 2023, Shaanxi City, summer. When Li Daoxuan woke up, it was already past 10 o'clock the next morning. The headache caused by insufficient sleep continued, and he habitually turned on the computer before realizing that he didn't have to work today. He was extremely hungry and looked at the scenery box foolishly for a whole day. He didn't eat a single grain of rice, so it was strange not to be hungry. Drowsy and confused, he walked into the kitchen, boiled water, and threw 2 eggs into the water. My mind slowly cleared up, and I remembered about the scenery box. I quickly rushed from the kitchen into the living room. The scenery box is still placed in the living room, and the little people inside have all woken up and are moving around in the village. Li Daoxuan quickly discovered the young girl and little person, who was carrying a bamboo basket and searching for grass roots on the yellow sand outside the village. She lost her mother only yesterday and may not have recovered from her grief, but she has already had to devote herself to searching for food. Li Daoxian sighed lightly and murmured, "This girl is so miserable." As soon as this sentence was spoken, the young girl suddenly lifted her head as if she had heard something. She lifted her head and looked over her head for a few seconds before her eyes locked onto the position where Li Daoxian was. Li Daoxian immediately had that feeling again, his gaze aligning with that of a young girl. Look at each other. The vision is very complex. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. Li Daoxuan's gaze was filled with pity and sympathy, while the girl's gaze was full of sadness and pleading for mercy. In 1627 AD, the 7th year of the Tianqi era, in summer, in Gaojia village, Qingqing County, Shaanxi province. Gao Ye lost her mother and is now a lonely family. But she didn't have time to mourn because there wasn't a single grain of food at home. She had to survive and couldn't be a useless person who only cried while holding on to her mother's belongings. She got up early in the morning, carried a bamboo basket, and walked out of the village with a heart full of sadness. First, I kowtowed in front of my mother's grave and spat at the grave where the bandits had buried their bodies. Then, as I walked, I searched for the place where weeds had once grown. This sandy area has been searched by her many times, and it has become increasingly difficult for her to find the roots. My hands and feet are becoming increasingly weak, and my body is already a bit shaky and unstable when standing. She doesn't know how long she can last. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. One day, if she can't find enough grass roots, she will be so hungry that she won't have the strength to go out to the village to search for food, so she will have to wait at home and die. She knew that the day was getting closer and closer. At that moment, she heard a sigh in the sky, "This girl is so miserable." She had faintly heard this voice somewhere before. Gao Ye suddenly lifted her head and saw a young man's face emerging from the clouds. Her gaze met, a pair of compassionate eyes full of emotions. The girl knew she was saved, so she bowed down again with a smile and said, "Heavenly Lord, I'm so hungry that I can't hold on anymore. Please be generous and compassionate, help me." Chapter 4. Here to Eat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gao Ye's forehead hit the ground, her bent knees pressed against her chest, and she crawled on the ground, huddled together like a helpless little animal, quietly waiting for the blessings of the gods. However, after waiting for a while, nothing happened. Looking up, I realized that the man's face in the clouds had disappeared without a trace. Are the heavenly gods unwilling to help me? Gao Ye bit her lower lip tightly and exerted some force, leaving a row of white tooth marks on her lips. Perhaps yesterday he helped me kill those heinous mountain bandits, but it was just a coincidence that the heavenly God was interested. If he answered his requests, why would the world suffer? On second thought, I have never offered anything to the heavenly God or built a temple for him. Have you ever burned incense? Have you ever lit a candle? How can he help me as an elderly person? Bite your teeth and continue searching for the roots. She dragged her weak body and continued to search for a glimmer of vitality in the yellow sand. Li Daoxian did not give up on her, he was just considering how to help her. The girl's plea was heard by him without falling a word. Although the sound was like ant chirping, as long as there were no other noises around, he could hear it clearly if he perked up his ears and listened carefully. She needs food. But how can I give her food? Li Daoxian stood up from the landscaping box and walked into the kitchen. The stove caught fire, and the water in the pot was boiling. He had just thrown 2 eggs into the water, which were almost cooked. Li Daoxuan's eyes lit up and he said, "Huh. If I put an egg in front of her, can she pick it up? Just give it a try and you'll know. Quickly turn off the fire, take out 2 boiled eggs from the pot, rinse them with cold water to cool them down, and then walk to the scenic box with an egg in one hand. The young girl and little person in the box are still searching hard on the yellow sand ground. Li Daoxian whispered, "Miss, I'll give it a try and give you something to eat." The young girl froze all over and looked up at the sky with a look of surprise in her eyes. Li Daoxian slowly put an egg into the box and placed it in front of the girl. Gao Ye thought that the heavenly god was unwilling to help her, but as she walked, she heard the gentle and majestic voice in her ears. She suddenly lifted her head and met the heavenly god's eyes once again, filled with tenderness and pity. Then, the clouds parted on both sides, and a huge hand reached down, placing a huge egg on the yellow sand ground in front of her. Gao Ye opened her mouth wide and looked at the egg in front of her in astonishment. A super huge, terrifyingly large egg. It is over 3 zhang in length and over 2 zhang in height, placed in front of Gao Ye, like the egg of an ancient giant beast, which scared her and made her step back several times. Is this an egg? High School Ye couldn't believe it was authentic. Li Daoxian. Yes, eggs, here you are. Gao Ye stuttered and looked up, "Can I eat this?" Li Daoxian said, "I have cooked it, you can eat it directly." Upon hearing the gentle words of the heavenly god, Gao Ye finally mustered up the courage and walked to the edge of the egg. She reached out and knocked on its eggshell, which made a dull sound as if it was knocking on a giant rock. She picked up a stone and used all her strength to smash it into the eggshell. Touch! The stone bounced open, leaving the eggshell unscathed. Gao Ye also bounced back and squatted, sitting on the ground panting heavily. Li Daoxian realized that this egg was a burden for the girl. She had no strength to crack open the eggshell. She is too small, less than 1 centimeter tall. In front of this 5 centimeter long egg, she appears so small. Li Daoxian said softly, "Let me help you peel off the shell." He reached into the box again and took out the egg. He knocked it on the wall next to him, divided it by 3 to 5, peeled the eggshell clean, and then placed it in front of the little girl. The girl's eyes widened. She wasn't quite sure if she hadn't peeled off the shell just now, but now that it's peeled off, she recognizes it clearly. It's really an egg, boiled in plain water, but it's also too big, over 3 zhang long. Is this really for me to eat? Li Daoxian. Let's eat. Gao Ye couldn't believe it a bit and said, "Really? Was it that you gave me something to eat?" Li Daoxian let out a long sigh and said, "Eat it, poor girl." Gao Ye pounced on the snow-white boiled egg with just one bite. Delicious, really fragrant. This is a good thing that only the young master of the landlord's family is qualified to eat, but now there is such a spicy one, let me eat it as I please. In the first year of high school, Yi San and his wife gnawed a big hole on the boiled egg, and the egg whites were eaten through, revealing the yolk inside. She plunged her whole head into the egg, nibbling on the yolk inside, making a satisfying sound. She ate happily, and Li Daoxian followed suit, finally helping this poor girl. However, is the egg I provided a bit too big? This little girl from the country of Lilliputians is less than 1 centimeter tall, but my egg is 5 centimeters long. She can't finish it no matter how much she eats, can she? It's July weather now, and if left overnight, the eggs will spoil and become inedible. As soon as he thought of this, he saw the young girl raise her head and say in a timid voice, Can we also invite the villagers to eat together? I can't finish it all by myself. It will spoil tomorrow. Li Daoxian spoke as gently as possible and said, "Okay, you reading www.uukangshu.net. Tell the villagers to come and eat." Gao Ye knocked his head down again and said, "Many. Thank you, Lord Tianshan." Having eaten enough, she also had the strength to run towards the village. As she ran, she became worried. Yesterday, when the heavenly god helped us kill those mountain bandits, only I could see the heavenly god's hand, and the other villagers couldn't see it. Will I be the only one who can eat that huge egg? If I call my fellow villagers over to eat eggs and they can't see, wouldn't they treat me as a scammer? Thinking of this, she ran back to the egg and forcefully broke off a fist-sized egg yolk from the giant egg. Holding the egg yolk in both hands, she ran back to the village and shouted at the first villager she met, "Brother, can you see what I have in my hand?" The man also had the surname Gao and his name was Gao Chu. Upon closer inspection, he froze and said, "This. Such a big egg yolk. Where did you get such a good thing from?" Gao Ye was overjoyed and said, "Can you see? Can you see? That's great, it's really great. Take a bite and see. I'm a bit confused in my 5th year of high school. How could you give me such a good thing to eat? Sister Iya has her own meals before and after. What's going on today?" But he was also so hungry that he didn't know what politeness and humility meant. He took the egg yolk and took a bite, feeling happy and satisfied in his mouth. "Ah, it's so delicious. It's been a long time since I've eaten such a good thing," he said. Gao Iya shouted loudly at the village, "Uncle and uncle, sister-in-law and aunt, brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters, come with me quickly. There's something delicious now, everyone can fill their stomachs." Chapter 5. Raise them up. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Not long after, the 40.2 people in the village gathered around the huge boiled eggs in white water. 42 pairs of bewildered eyes stared at this huge boiled egg in plain water together. An egg that is 3 zhang long and over 1 zhang tall, incredibly huge. People standing in front of this egg are like standing in front of a small house. If it weren't for a hole on the egg and a clear view of the yolk inside, they wouldn't be sure it was a boiled egg with a peeled shell. The village chief of Gaojia village stood at the front, with a wrinkled face full of doubts. "Yeah, did you just say that this huge boiled egg was given by the heavenly god?" Gao Ye nodded and pointed to the sky. "It's the heavenly god who helped us kill the mountain bandits yesterday." Everyone in Gaojia village looked at each other in confusion. The scene that happened yesterday seems to be still in front of us. The group of heinous thieves were crushed into meat patties by invisible pressure, with blood splattering. The scene is really shocking. Afterwards, only Gao Ye said that she saw a heavenly god and reached out from the clouds to beat the bandits to death one by one. But no one else saw it. The villagers didn't know whether to believe her words or not. Unexpectedly, just one day later, Gao Ye produced such a big egg again, claiming that it was given by the heavenly god. The village chief sighed and said, "Think carefully. Who else could have done that yesterday, except for the heavenly god? And today, no one else could have made this big egg except for the heavenly god. Even if there were such big eggs in the world, there wouldn't be such a big pot to cook." Everyone nodded in unison. Village chief. "Yeah, it seems that the heavenly god Lord is particularly fond of you and only appears in front of you, while others have too little luck to see the heavenly god and his elderly side." Gao Ye was a bit surprised and said, "The heavenly god is particularly fond of me." The village chief nodded and said, "Does the old man have any other instructions?" After careful consideration, Gao Ye said, "He only asked me to eat. Oh, by the way, he even said to ask the villagers to come and eat." In the 5th year of high school, he smashed his lips beside him. He had just eaten a fist-sized egg yolk, and now there was still a little egg residue on his lips. He kept licking and licking his lips with his tongue, not even a tiny bit of egg residue. "I've already eaten one, it's really delicious," he said, seeing that both young people had already eaten and seemed to be fine. The village chief no longer hesitated. He pointed to the big egg in front of him and said seriously, "Since it was given to us by the heavenly god, let's eat it. However, there is no need to rob recklessly. If you rob recklessly, it will cause the ground to be covered and seriously waste food. On the 5th day of the Lunar New Year, go get a knife to cut it. I think this egg weighs about tens of thousands of pounds. There are only 42 people in the village, and each person can weigh a few hundred pounds. The excess belongs to Iya." The village chief completed the basic allocation, and in the 5th year of high school, he also brought a knife over. Everyone carefully cut and weighed, afraid of spilling a piece of egg yolk. It wasn't until each person received a large lump of egg yolk and a large lump of egg yolk, and took out all the pots at home before reluctantly filling it in. A group of people wolfed down and started eating. As for the extra large lump, the villagers helped Gao Ye carry it back to her house and place it in the cellar. Under the high temperature of summer, boiled eggs are not durable to preserve. Such a large egg is destined to rot a lot tomorrow, but these villagers did not consider that kind of thing. If it rots, they plan to continue eating, which is better than starving to death. After finishing their meal, the villagers all knelt on the ground and worshipped the sky, thanking the heavenly God for his blessings and praying for his blessings. The drought will end soon, with good weather and abundant crops. The scenery box once again regained calmness, and the little people started working as usual. Their way of working was 1. Finding food. Go up the mountain slope to find food, go down the riverbed to find food, dig 3 feet into the ground to find food. Although they only had a full meal, boiled eggs are not durable to preserve, and they are starting to worry about their livelihood tomorrow. Gao Ye also picked up the bamboo basket again, searching for grass roots on the yellow sand-covered land as usual. Perhaps it was because she had just eaten enough, but now she is walking a bit harder, not as pitiful as before. Li Daoxuan sat outside the observation box, silently watching the actions of the children, with mixed feelings in his heart, quite unpleasant. 1 egg cannot save them. So, give them an egg every day. Eating eggs alone can lead to insufficient nutrition, right? We still need to get them some rice and vegetables, and occasionally some meat. By the way, we still need salt. It's not acceptable for humans not to eat salt. Even small people can be considered humans, right? Thinking about it this way, things seem to have become more complicated. Li Daoxuan thought to himself, I'm afraid it feels like I've raised a box of little hamsters. According to the appetite of these 40.2 little people, they need to spend at least a few tens of yuan a month to support them. It's not that you can't afford to spend this money, it's just that, let's keep it. Open Dunyang and search for, how should the little people in the country of little people be raised? I couldn't find any answer on Dunyang's search. Open your frequently visited military history forum and anonymously post, if you have a group of villains from the country of Lilliputians, how would you raise them? Reply 1. Is there a female villain? Every day, I catch her and lift her skirt. Reply 2. Every day I secretly watch her take a shower. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net Li Daoxuan. Damn it, a group of intellectually disabled people. There's no reason to talk to these unknown guys. It seems that we can only cross the river by feeling the stones and learn to raise little people from scratch. Li Daoxuan walked into the kitchen and looked at his food reserves. Okay, basically there's no reserve. Urban young people like him often eat takeout and only have a very small amount of time to cook noodles or 2 eggs, so the refrigerator is empty. Apart from a few eggs, half a handful of dry noodles, oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar, there is nothing left. This is definitely not feasible. Li Daoxuan glanced at the landscaping box and confirmed that the children did not need his care for the time being. He quickly left the door and ran into the nearest supermarket, carrying a bag of rice, buying 2 pieces of pork, a bag of vegetables, and a large bag of salt, which cost more than 100 yuan. After returning home, Li Daoxuan approached the scenic box and counted the 40.2 little people, one by one, diligently searching for food. He suddenly had a mischievous thought, cut open the rice bag, and grabbed a handful of rice from inside. The snow-white rice from northeast China has a strong aroma of rice. I found the home of the young girl and little person in the village, and looked at her house with a magnifying glass. The house was empty and had almost no furniture. It's a pity that there's no need to decorate such an empty house. Li Daoxuan placed his hand in the shape of a dustpan and aimed it at the window of the young girl's house. He slowly poured a handful of rice into her house until it filled half of the room. She clapped her hands and waited happily. She must have been very happy to see so many meters when she came home. Chapter 6. The Yamen servant comes. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In 1627 AD, the 7th year of Tianqi, Qingqing County, Shaanxi Province. Zhang Yaokai, the supervisor of the county of Qingqing County, was sitting in the lobby of the county government office. Looking at the account book handed over by the master, he frowned tightly and said with a sour face, "Are the taxes owed by the villages still confiscated? It's urgent to hurry up." Master quickly accompanied a smiling face and said, "County Lord, Shaanxi is suffering from a severe drought, with thousands of miles of barren land and people struggling to make ends meet. Those ordinary people have run out of food, and no matter how hard they urge them, they cannot recover it. This is called helplessness. He said the 4 words, helpless, with both force and force, combined with an exaggerated expression, which appeared quite comical. Zhang Yaokai knew that this master had always liked to add an inexplicable summary at the end of the sentence, but he didn't care. He just snorted, "They don't have food. The scumbags have plenty of food in their hands, they just hide it and don't want to use it to pay rent." The master awkwardly said, "What about the drought?" Zhang Yaokai said, "The year before last was also a drought, and last year was also a drought. How could we still harvest grain, but unfortunately, this year's drought is not enough to harvest it." Master. In the first year of the drought, everyone still had food reserves. In the second year of the drought, even if we smashed pots and sold iron, we could barely afford to pay taxes. In the third year, the drought continued. That means we were going to lose lives, where else could we afford to pay for food? This is called 3 in a row. Zhang Yaokai tilted his eyes and said, "What's wrong? You're actually helping those scumbags talk. How many benefits have you received from them? How dare you brag in my ear?" The master was startled and said, "I would like to inform the county magistrate that if I confiscate any benefits from them, they will not be able to survive. How could I have the money to take care of them? It's really. I have to say something for them. This is called conscience discovery. Zhang Yaokai snorted and paid no attention to his master. He rolled his eyes and said to the nearby Yamen attendant, "You guys, organize a team to urge taxes. Let me see, Gaojia village, Wanjia village, Zhengjia village. These villages have paid the least taxes this year. How many teams do you divide and go to these villages for a walk? Remember, those despicable people like to cry about poverty. They even hide food in their homes but refuse to pay taxes. If they come across such despicable people, they will have to hit me hard and hit me to the death." The Yamen runners roared in agreement. The master was shocked and hugged Zhang Yaocai's leg, crying loudly, "County Lord, you can't use it. The people have already suffered a lot. If we force them again, we are afraid of pushing against the good people. This is called official forcing the people to rebel. Get out of here, I've had enough of your lunaticism." Zhang Yaokai kicked his master on the crotch of his pants, who fell to the ground and shrank into a ball while covering his crotch. P.S. Zhang Yaokai is a historical figure, not the author of this book. It is recorded in the history book that the Tianqi Dingmao, Shaanxi drought. Zhang Yaokai, the supervisor of the county of Qingqing, is very cool to urge the imperial examination, and the people can't bear its poison. As the sun sets in the west, the earth turns yellow with feces. Gao Ye dragged her tired body back to Gaojia village. The bamboo basket contains the fruits of her hard work for the day, with a small half basket of bark, grass roots, and wild vegetables. These things, along with boiled eggs left over during the day, will definitely fill your stomach tomorrow. This makes her footsteps a bit light and agile. Other villagers are also returning to the village one after another, each carrying a basket of wild grass and bark. When they saw Gao Ye, many people waved to her and thanked her for bringing big eggs to everyone. As Gao Ye responded to the villagers' greetings, she walked to her own door and opened the latch. With a loud bang, at the opening of the door, a large pile of oval-shaped white rice with a diameter of over half a meter rolled down towards her. Gao Ye was startled and only took a half step back when she was caught up by the huge white rice. As she was about to be submerged, a big hand reached out from the sky and gently blocked in front of her. The sliding force of the big white rice was temporarily suspended, but Gao Ye was still tripped and fell by the big white rice that leaked out between his fingers. She suddenly froze and looked foolishly at her side. Rice. What a big rice. Each grain of rice is over half a meter long, and if you only need 1 grain of rice, it may weigh over 100 pounds. She was bewildered and didn't know what had happened when she saw the face of the heavenly God Lord appearing faintly in the sky above her. With a smile on her face, it disappeared into the clouds for an instant. Gao Ye realized that it was the heavenly God who played a small joke on him. He filled his house with huge divine rice, waiting for him to be startled when he opened the door. After figuring it out, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Being submerged in so many big white rice has been a dream since the drought in recent years. I never expected it to be realized in this way. It's hard to be unhappy, even the sadness of my mother's passing has briefly dissipated. However, surrounded by big white rice, she couldn't even climb out. Gao Ye could only shout loudly, "Grandpa village chief, 5th grade brother, fellow villagers, come and help me quickly." With this shout, her neighbors immediately surrounded her. Then their screams of surprise rang out. Rice, what a big rice! The young and strong 5th year of high school rushed over and pushed away the big white rice around her, pulling her out of the pile of rice. The village chief also rushed over at the first opportunity, and then the whole village of 42 people gathered at the entrance of Ye's house in the first year of high school. Everyone looked at the huge white rice like a grinding wheel and fell into chaos, in a brief state of panic. After a while, the village chief said, "This is also a gift from the heavenly God, isn't it? There is no such big rice in the world." Gao Ye nodded and said, "The heavenly God played a small joke on me." Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net intentionally piled up big white rice in my home, and when I opened the door, it flooded me. Village chief. This kind of joke, I really hope he plays with us once a day. In the 5th year of high school, he foolishly laughed and reached out to pick up a big white rice on the ground. This thing weighed more than 10 pounds and tasted delicious when held in his arms. However, he refused to let go and smiled foolishly. "How do we divide this rice? Do we divide it into 50 in our family?" The village chief angrily said, "Stop it. Put it away. We still don't know if this rice is only given to 1 leaf, or to all of us. If it is only given to 1 leaf, you take it randomly and provoke the heavenly God. Do you want to be like a mountain bandit and be beaten into meat sauce?" Gao Chu was startled, his hands stiffened, and the rice fell to the ground. The village chief turned to Iya and said with warmth, "Iya, you are a good child. Since the heavenly God has chosen to only appear in front of you, we can only invite you to speak to him. Could you please ask him about these rice? Can we also enjoy some of your light?" Just as he was talking about this, a voice of arrogance suddenly sounded in the direction of the village entrance. "Dalits of Gaojia village, come out, don't hide in the house one by one and pretend to be dead. When will you pay the taxes you owe the court?" As the sound came, the faces of all the villagers turned black. Even the naive child was so frightened that they covered their mouths and dared not cry. "Oh no, the county Yamen is here," said Gao Chu in a low voice. The village chief didn't think for a moment and immediately said, "Yeah, the 5th day of junior high school, and those young people, take action immediately and bring all these rice back to Iye's house. Close the door. I'll go to the village entrance to deal with the Yamen. Remember, don't let them see the rice in this house." Where did these little people come from in Chapter 7? You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error. please try another translator. Chapter 8. Cannot kill them. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Daoxuan took out his phone with his right hand and clicked at the little people inside the box, taking a few macro photos to capture this moment of stalemate. At the same time, his left hand was ready to help his little one at any time. He opened the top cover of the landscaping box and hung one hand over it. As long as his little one was in danger of his life, he was ready to extend his left hand in and kill these 5 foreign officials and servants. Just like killing those mountain bandits. Gao Ye was very panicked, the kind of panic that couldn't be better. She saw that the heavenly god appeared vaguely in the sky. Of course, this was not the most terrifying thing, but what was terrifying was that the heavenly god had already raised his hand. She knows what it means for the heavenly god to raise his hand. Yesterday, she witnessed with her own eyes that the heavenly god slapped and turned all the bandits into meat patties. The terrifying and soothing scene still lingers in her mind to this day. Gao Ye quickly lifted her head and shouted to the sky, "No. Heavenly God, don't kill them." Li Daoxuan. Ha! Gao Ye shouted, "They are officials. Kill them, and our entire village will be finished." She shouted with all her strength, and everyone around her naturally heard it. The villagers gathered in unison. The 5 officials were also stunned, and then looked up at the sky at the same time, thinking to themselves. What does that mean? This villager actually shouted to the sky not to kill us. What is there in the sky that can kill the 5 of us? I can't see it, there's nothing in the sky. They were not foolish, but immediately remembered what the village chief had said earlier. This is the divine rice given to us by the heavenly God. It is for saving lives. If you dare to touch them, the heavenly God will take your life. Cut. The official in charge couldn't help but tilt his mouth and curse, what kind of Shaanxi is being played with? Another official also said, I'm scared. I really thought something could come and kill me, but it turned out to be a few lowly rascals acting. Being an old man is really scary. A high-ranking official shouted at Gao Ye, "You despicable woman, what kind of nonsense are you shouting? To threaten an official is to oppose the court and not want to live anymore." Gao Ye said, "I didn't scare you. I'm trying to save you. Let's go quickly. The heavenly God has already raised his hand. You have angered him. If this continues, he will slap you all to death." 5 officials. This made me feel uneasy, but it was really hard to believe. The official in charge raised his crossbow and gave a glance to the subordinate next to him, saying, "Take the woman who has been deceiving the public with her demonic words and bring her back to the county government for slow interrogation. She may be a demon from the White Lotus cult." The official raised the iron ruler in his hand and slowly walked towards Gao Ye. Gao Ye glanced at the official who was walking towards him, then looked up. The clouds parted, and the hands of the heavenly God Lord were rapidly moving downwards, quickly moving above the official's head. It was obvious that the heavenly God Lord was blessing him. If the official acted against him, the heavenly God Lord would slap him down and turn the official into a meat cake. But officials and mountain bandits are different. Once the mountain bandits are killed, they will be killed. Once they are carried out of the village and buried, there will be no more content. But the official's death in Gaojia village would lead to serious consequences. The government would believe that the people of Gaojia village killed them, and the entire village would be branded as rebellious. Then the army came to suppress them, and everyone died without a place to bury themselves. Gao Ye ignored the official who walked towards him, raised his head, and continued to shout at the sky, "Heavenly God, you cannot kill them. You must not kill them. Let them know that you are here, and they will not dare to be rude to you." Li Daoxuan heard the girl's call. She screamed in agony, only to protect these 5 officials. Oh, no. She is protecting herself, protecting the villagers. Li Daoxian immediately understood that behind these 5 officials, there were more officials, and their identities represented the power behind them. This landscape box is not as simple as what my eyes see. This time, let's do it according to the girl's expectations. Li Daoxian originally intended to pat the official's hand to death, but he put it away. He only extended his 2 fingers and gently picked up the official, as if picking up a small wild flower. Ah ah ah. The official let out a pig-killing scream. He was walking step by step towards Gaoye, preparing to take the girl who had been deceiving others back for interrogation. Unexpectedly, he suddenly felt a strong force gripping his shoulder, and the immense force pressed towards the center, causing his bones to creak and almost fall apart. He looked left and right, wanting to see what was gripping him, but couldn't see. There was nothing around him, and he could only feel the invisible force. Then his feet lifted off the ground and suspended in mid-air. The invisible force lifted him up and suspended him at a height of 1 zhang. The other 4 officials lifted their heads together and looked at the struggling officials hanging in mid-air, their faces filled with astonishment. The villagers knelt down when they saw this scene and said, "The heavenly god has appeared." The official who was caught in mid-air was so scared that tears and snouts flowed down his face, even his pants were soaked. He waved his hands and feet in mid-air and shouted loudly, "God of heaven, spare your life, God of heaven, spare your life. I didn't mean to offend you. I was wrong. Spare my life." The other 4 officials looked at each other and didn't know what to do for a moment. At this moment, Li Daoxian puffed up his cheeks and blew a sigh of relief at the other 4 officials. Boom! A strong wind is rising. A strong wind, Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net rolled up to the 4 people, not to the other people, but to the 4 of them. 4 officials were blown by this terrifying wind and flew backwards in unison, flying 3 or 4 meters away. They landed heavily and almost fell into 4 pieces on their buttocks. The 4 of them finally knew what they were supposed to do, quickly flipped over and got up, then with a thud, knelt down on the ground and knocked their foreheads against the yellow sand. Li Daoxian spoke up and said, "Tell them to get out. Don't tell anyone about what happened just now." Gaoye exclaimed loudly, "The heavenly god has told you to leave and warned you not to disclose today's events." The 4 of them quickly kowtowed and said, "Respect the commands of the heavenly god. Get up, let go and run." The official who was suspended in mid-air burst into tears and said, "I also want to get out of here. Lord Tianshan, please spare my life. Let me get out of here too. I won't even say a word about what's going on here." Li Daoxian let go of his hand, and the official fell from a height of 1 foot. He fell hard with a thud, but he held back the pain, flipped over, and limped after his 4 colleagues. Li Daoxuan's gaze was fixed on the 5 officials. He wanted to see clearly how they were going to leave the scenic box. The 5 of them stumbled and ran out of the village in a state of embarrassment, onto the yellow sand outside the village. After running again, they quickly reached the edge of the scenic box. There is a glass wall standing here. The 5 of them seemed to be unable to see the glass wall and continued to walk forward, penetrating through the glass. But they did not penetrate outside the scenic box, but disappeared without a trace, as if the glass wall was a portal to another world. Did you go out? Disappeared. Li Daoxian couldn't help but ponder as he watched the outsiders enter and exit the scenic box. Chapter 9. The World of Little People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Need to re-examine your own landscaping box, perhaps it's not just for raising these 40.2 little people, but connecting the world of another little country. No, using connect may not be appropriate, but using look down is more appropriate. I thought I had raised a small box of little people, so I would raise them casually, just like raising a box of little hamsters. I never thought about delving into the true situation of these little people, but if I were looking down at another world of little people, there would be many things worth studying. Li Daoxian turned his perspective to the small villagers. At this moment, the officials and petty people had already fled, and the villagers were gathered together, cheering and bowing to the sky. As the only person who can converse with the heavenly God, the young girl was surrounded by the villagers and said something to her with 7 mouths and 8 tongues. The young girl raised her head and shouted loudly into the sky, "Heavenly God, thank you to the villagers for your help. Do you want to ask if these divine rice were given to me alone or allowed to be enjoyed by the villagers?" Li Daoxuan's gaze was fixed on the young girl. This little girl can communicate with herself, she can hear herself speaking, and through her, she can learn about the world of little people. It seems that it is time to have a few words with this little girl. Li Daoxian spoke up and said, "Divide the rice among everyone. Also, I have some questions I want to ask you." The little girl was overjoyed and said, "My fellow villagers, the heavenly God said that these rice are for reward to all of us, and everyone can share them." The villagers and the little ones immediately cheered. "Blessed by the heavenly God. Long live the gods." Yeah, is the heavenly God Lord a Buddhist or Taoist deity? Should we say, Ami stole the Buddha or Wuliang Shofu? The young girl was also confused. Although she could see the face of the deity appearing faintly in the clouds, she couldn't see whether he was wearing a Taoist robe or a monk's robe. She couldn't figure out whether to say, Ami stole the Buddha or Wuliang thin and lucky, when praying, which was very awkward. If you make a mistake in praying for the incision, it will anger the heavenly God, and you don't even know how to write the word death. However, it seems that everyone is illiterate, and they never know how to write dead words. The villagers froze and couldn't continue praying. Li Daoxian shook his head with a mixture of laughter and laughter. These little people are quite interesting. They even study whether they are gods of Buddhism or Taoism. It seems that the culture of this little country is in line with our culture. He said with a slight smile, "Don't worry about Taoism and Buddhism, I'm not from either side." The young girl was stunned, and now she entered her knowledge blind spot. Are there such gods and adults? Li Daoxian said, "Don't worry about such small matters. Tell everyone to be quiet, I'm going to ask a question." The young girl quickly shouted, "Everyone be quiet. The heavenly God has a few more questions to ask us." With her shout, everyone instantly fell silent. Li Daoxian said, "Which planet, continent, or dimension are you on?" The young girl couldn't understand, so she repeated the sentence in its original form and told it to all the villagers. However, none of the little people present understood. Even the village chief and little person they knew the most and had seen in the world looked bewildered. What is the planet? What is the mainland? What is dimension? From their expressions, it can be seen that they have no concept of these words. Li Daoxian understood that although the culture is of the same origin, their level of knowledge is still at the level of hundreds of years ago. Which country are you in? What is the current era? The concept of a country is a bit spicy for young people. They know they are in a country, which has a court and a military. However, they all didn't know the name and era of this country, and shook their heads neatly. Li Daoxian frowned and said, "These guys don't even know what country they are from or what age they are. This is also an extremely illiterate person. However, on closer reflection, you will understand. In ancient times, farmers could not recognize a single character and could not leave the village. The farthest distance from their homes was probably only to a county town. If their birthplace was slightly barren and there were no business trips passing by, the villagers would be like this group of people in front of them, unaware of everything and oblivious to the outside world. In the mountains, I don't know how long time has passed, but in the human world, 100 years have passed." Li Daoxian let out a long sigh and said, "It's okay. I can't ask anything from you either." The villagers looked at each other in confusion. Gao Iya lowered her voice and said to the villagers around her, "It seems that the heavenly God is very disappointed." Village chief. Hey! We can't answer its elderly question, of course it's disappointed. Gaoye. What should I do? The village chief thought seriously and said, Tell the heavenly God Lord, please give us some time and let us think of a way to find someone knowledgeable. Gaoye said, A knowledgeable person. There isn't even a knowledgeable person in the village. The village head said, There is no one in Gaojia village, but there is one in the county seat. Let me think about it. The most knowledgeable person I have ever met. Of course, it is the supervisor of the county. Gaoye shook his head awkwardly. Where can we invite the supervisor of the county master? The village head said, Let's invite Yu, the master of supervisor of the county, to read www.yuyukangshu.net 30.2. P.S. San is a very rare surname, first seen in the Ming Dynasty's genealogy of 10,000 surnames. The historical figures of San's surnames were the three treasure pillars of the Yuan dynasty and the governor of Ruyan. The Ming dynasty had 3 records. Therefore, it is reasonable for San's surnames to have 12 surnames during the Ming dynasty. Gaoye shook his head and said, Master, we can't invite you either. The village head smiled. Although the master is also a big man, he is not surrounded by officials every day like the master of the supervisor of the county. It is much easier to get up. Gaoye. What? The village chief turned his head to look at a young man next to him and said, 5th day. Step forward in the 5th year of high school and smile foolishly. The village chief ordered, Tomorrow morning, take a few young men from the village and eat more big white rice to be full and strong. Take a trip to the county and invite the master to come to Gaojia village. If he is willing to come, please do it well. If he is unwilling to come, he will knock us unconscious with a stick and turn his back. Remember, our life is given by the heavenly God. Whatever the heavenly God wants, we must offer it to his elderly family and not let them down on us. In the 5th year of high school, I grinned wide and said, All right, all right. The heavenly God rewarded me with a big egg and also gave me a big white rice. I want to listen to his advice, but I have never been to the county town before. How do I get there? Village chief. I'll teach you how to get there. At this moment, Daoxuan was still watching outside the box. Seeing these little people discussing seriously about inviting a knowledgeable master to come back and answer his questions, he couldn't help but feel a bit happy. It sounded quite fun. The Lilliputian world seems not small. If there are villages, counties, officials, supervisor of the county and teachers, there must be a huge country. I hope they can invite the master from the county town back as soon as possible. Chapter 10. When I'm hungry, there's only one worry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator.